Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Englewood Cliffs Mayor and Council. Today is July 29th, 2019. It's 7:08 p.m. I call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Kranjak,
Here.
Councilpersons Wu,
Here.
Song,
Here.
Sabari, Park is running late, Aversa,
Here.
O, here, Borough Attorney,
Here.
Municipal Clerk. Mayor, everyone is present except Councilwoman Park, who sent an email saying she was running late at work.
Okay. So we always start our meetings off with the flag salute. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please read into the record the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the press and posted as required. Date and time of this meeting was legally given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. This notice is on file with the municipal clerk and posted on the bulletin board. Minutes of this meeting will be made available to the public upon the completion of typing and proofreading by the municipal clerk. Mayor, may I ask for a favor, if you please?
You can ask.
I know it's not part of the regular agenda for a moment of silence, but we had a former resident who grew up in this town pass away, and I would like to have a moment of silence for him and at the next meeting as well.
What's his name?
Matthew Vinci.
Let's have a moment of silence for Matthew Vinci, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do is, I noticed that there are things not on the resolutions that have been shared with me, and I think it'd be more efficient for this meeting that we would go into closed session first. If the council wants to introduce something new to the public will hear it when we come back, and the public could comment on that and anything else it wishes to comment on at that time. The alternative is that we have public portion now, go into closed session. If the council is going to introduce anything new to the agenda, then we need to open again to the public. So my suggestion is that we go into closed session now. Have a motion to go into closed session?
I make that motion.
Who seconds it?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to go into closed session, which means that we're going to discuss confidential matters relating to a litigation or more than one litigation. We have our adversaries usually in the audience. I know they have a court reporter here. I think he might be in the back row as well. So we can't discuss these things openly. What I can say, though, is on July 10th, as you recall, Mayor and Council met at the school regarding affordable housing. It was very clear what the public wanted, which is consistent with what I want. We had a show of hands. There was about 300 people opposing residential development at 800 Sylvan, and yes, there was one person in favor of it. Since July 10th, I have not been updated at all by this council, by Mr. Marinello, by Mr. Serenian, or Mr. Wunsch, or Mr. Mistretta. Until this past Friday at 6:30 p.m., I received an update. So it was basically 16 days gone by without a word from them. I know they were busy doing things, God only knows what. We're going to find out now in closed session, and then I hope you get to find out afterwards as well. As I mentioned, Mr. Wunsch, who's in that room right now, supposedly representing our interests, he was recently in court, had an appeal filed against the borough on behalf of an individual defendant. So, you know, I'm an attorney. I understand what conflicts of interest are. You can't be representing parties adverse to your other party. So you have a conflict with your former client and your current client. In his case, he had two clients opposed to each other. So he's the person representing your interests and my interests when he gets in, starts negotiating with affordable housing people, with Normandy the developer. We can do better than that. One of my intentions has been, and I listened to everything that the people said on July 10th, which is replace the team of professionals who are dealing with affordable housing, and just start over with somebody else, okay? I'm still of that view, and I'll fight for that. We're going to go into closed session as soon as the clerk reads into the record the appropriate language for us to go into closed session.
Resolution 19-150, whereas the mayor and council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain confidential matters. Whereas the minutes of this closed session will remain confidential as permitted under the Open Public Meetings Act or shall be released when there is no further need for confidentiality, as authorized by the Borough Attorney. Now therefore be it resolved, the mayor and council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs will go into closed session for the following matters as permitted under the Open Public Meetings Act and JSA 10:4-12. Regarding affordable housing, BERL 6119-15, Builders Remedy Lawsuit, BERL 69-18, Builders Suit to Challenge Planning Board, BERL 908817.
Okay. We're going to be at least 30 minutes in closed session. And then, as I said, when we come out, we'll take questions from the public. We'll invite you to come up here as well. That'll be after closed session, ma'am. So this is a meeting scheduled by council, not by mayor. And so the council will not give you an answer since they all left the dais. Generally, the meetings are run like this. We go into closed session. Mr. Marinello, could you move over, please? Sure. You're blocking the conversation. More up, sir. Thank you. You're right. You shouldn't have to sit there. And everybody should be here on time also, especially if you are, and I know you were here on time. I'll try to speed them up, ma'am. That's all I can do. All right, let's do that over. Let's have a motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for your patience. We appreciate you waiting. We had a closed session meeting with our attorneys and planner, and they kind of gone out the back door, so you can see them here. We are adding to the agenda, and I'm going to let the clerk reference the resolution that's being added. We have, I've asked that copies be made because they weren't out there, and I want the public to have an opportunity to review these resolutions. Madam Clerk, would you please reference it?
Well, we're adding, because it's not on the agenda and it was discussed in closed session, and a vote will happen after closed session. It's a resolution 19-157 referencing affordable housing. So I made about 35 copies. I'm going to put it on the table if residents want them. If by chance we run out, please feel free to email me. You don't have to put in an Oprah, and I will gladly email everyone a copy of this. Whoever would like a copy.
Can we, you know what, Lizette, hold on to one. Can you make more copies so everybody gets one? All right, just don't take the last one, everyone. I didn't get one. So before we open to the public, I'm just going to put us into recess for a few minutes so everybody who took this could have an opportunity to review it. And what I'll say, though, is that as mayor, I've always said that we have to comply with all applicable laws, including the fair share housing laws or affordable housing laws. Whether or not we agree with them, they are the law, we have to comply with it. But I've also said that we also have the right as a borough to find our own way to comply. I believe in home rule, and we don't want other people telling us how to comply with the laws that we are subject to. So, in part, this resolution accomplishes that. We heard you at the July 10th meeting loud and clear. I'm glad you actually all agreed with me for the most part, which is I don't want residential housing at 800 Sylvan, and I appreciate that. But also, we still have to deal with it. So this is going back to our January 2019 plan, where the borough would satisfy its own obligations. However, what's missing from that resolution, and the reason why I don't agree with it completely, is that there was a memorandum of understanding referenced in the past. It's private, confidential. No one has a copy of it except the council. I want it to be clear in this resolution that we actually terminate that MOU. But the council's not willing to do that. So you could consider that when you read this also, okay? I just think that it should be clearly stated that the MOU be terminated, okay? I can't get into the details of the MOU, but it tracks the presentation from July 10th. I also had asked for basically a termination of the professionals that we have in the resolution, because I also heard the public agree with me on that we should hire a new group of professionals to deal with this problem. Thank you for your services and just change everybody, because it's been a different year in 2019. I won't go into it the way it was in 2018. It was all on track. 2019 changed. And I'm not happy about that, because I was excluded from all the communications. In fact, I haven't had any communications with the council or our professionals since the July 10th meeting until Friday evening, July 26th, which tells you that those professionals are not working for the town, they're working for a party, okay? Because the Republicans have been cut out of the process, okay? So I'm going to put us in recess for 5 minutes. Take your time and read this, because I want you to have the ability to comment on it. Okay, thank you. So we've just come out of recess. Everybody's had a chance to review that resolution that I mentioned before the recess. The bottom line is, again, we want to have the right to solve our own problems our own way, and if that means further litigation, then so be it. What I'd like to do now is open to the public, and I need a motion to do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So if there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard, just raise your hand. I'll recognize you, and then you come up here, sit at the table, state your name and address, and just say what you want to say. Yes, sir. Yes, just have a seat.
Young Hoon Chung, 68 Center Street, Newburgh Place, New Jersey. Thank you very much for this opportunity. First of all, I've lived here almost 30 years, from 1990, so 29, 30 years. And it's the first time I'm speaking this way, but from my point of view, this is a crisis for this town. And side note, I see 6 council persons here. I voted for 3 persons here. Maybe, it's neither here or there. The point is, this is crisis for the town, not for the nothing to do with it. It's a politics. Whether you are Democratic or Republican, I consider it crisis. The reason I consider it crisis, I read this Normandy Corporation, they're proposing anywhere from 400 to 600 or 800 units, we don't know, right? So let's take a small number, 400 units. This town is a little bit less than 2,000 households. If they build 400 units, that's 20% extra. If they build 800 units, that's 40% extra. I do not know how much households in New York City, but population is about 8.5 million. So if you add 20%, that's 1.7 million people. If you add 40%, that's 3.5 million people. From New York City, that's a crisis. How are you going to accommodate? School system, infrastructure, it may be different. How can you accommodate 20-40%? Maybe they can, but in this number alone, it is crisis number. So I consider it crisis, but to resolve it, the way I see it, this town have two problems. Affordable housing problem and problem with this Normandy Corporation. They're trying to tangle it together to make it one problem. They got a solution to affordable housing. They're going to solve it together. But as far as I see, they're two separate problems. We have an affordable housing problem. It doesn't matter whether whose fault it is. Maybe it could have been solved 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 3 years ago. It really doesn't matter whose fault it is at this point. This town has affordable housing problem. Another problem is a separate problem, Normandy problem. They have a problem. They bought the property, who knows? They want to develop it, they want to make money, they want to make profit, it's fine. But we should not tangle it together, because they want to tangle it together, make it so they can profit from it. We should, just like Mayor proposed, we should resolve it our own way. The reason being because it's a separate problem. Normandy Corporation, they want to do add 20%, 40% population, they want to make money, it's fine. But that should be resolved separately. They want to change the zoning, they should come to the town, present something concrete. This is what we want to do. We want to do 200, 400 units, can you rezone it? But they should not tie it together with affordable housing. This is two separate, they are in profit mode. We have an affordable housing problem. This cannot be combined together, because when you combine it together, later on, Normandy, they're proposing they're going to solve our affordable housing problem for us. But why are they doing it? They're doing it for profit. So after they say they're going to resolve our housing problem, and they build and they leave, we're going to be left with, just like New York City, 1.7 million, 4.4 million people. How are they going to accommodate housing, the housing, but school, everything else? This company made a profit and they leave. After that, we are stuck with even bigger problem. So if they make it one problem, saying, "Oh, we're going to solve it for you," they're not solving it for us. They're going to make a profit and they're going to leave with this much bigger problem. This affordable housing problem is a problem. They're going to leave with us even bigger problem. That's the way I see it. So this is crisis. They said, oh, 400, 600, 800 units, it's just like children playing with toys. It's not. It's a huge number for this town. This is crisis number. And I'm going to say, repeating myself, this has to be solved separately. They have their problem. They want to make profit, figure it out. But They cannot say they're gonna resolve our, affordable housing problem by building 400, 600, 800. No, because they'll leave us with even bigger problem than this affordable housing, even though this is a big problem.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Payment method, 75 Roberts Road. I got these mails, and of course, over the period of time, we've been receiving all these mails. Some of them came from, some of them alleged that basically it's because of Mario Kranjak, and because of his handpicked planning commission board, we have a problem. I think it's too naive or too simplistic to think that people in town are stupid. Because when you mention these kind of things over here, since 1985, the Mount Laurel Doctrine was there, and what did all the previous mayors and previous council did from 1985 till today? Nothing. Nothing, okay? Then to turn it around and blame it on Mario Kranjak. Yes, it is Mayor Kranjak.
Strike one in the back.
No, it
Tomorrow
is
you're out.
Every mayor, according to what I understand, appoints his planning board. Okay? So that means every time, so then why did the previous planning board did not change the zoning the way it was required, and why did they not create some token, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40? So was it the previous mayor's problem at that time? So then, actually the problem should go back to the previous mayors, okay? So it is not the current mayor's planning board problem or issues. So please, don't think that average person is stupid, okay? That's number one. Number two, let's work together to resolve. If these guys, now you're saying Normandy fought this because the planning was, the subdivision or whatever was rejected. If they really want to resolve this, I am in real estate business. I see the number difference. They're going to make $100 million plus more in profit at the expense of every resident in this town. And for the council members to go and vote for it and say that, yes, we should do it in the name of good for you people, I think is completely wrong. Then number two, on July 10th, when we had this hearing, everybody, I was one of the first ones who spoke against some of the things, raised some of the questions to our genius experts, and then a lot of other members said things. And it was asked of every council member of you, are you guys in for this plan or against the plan? None of you voted against it. Now I have this this flyer, that now somehow magically you are going to be against the
Where
plan.
did it say we were against it, sir?
What?
Where did it
Oh,
ever
no,
say
no, no.
we were for it?
No.
When did I ever say I was for it? That's-
No, nobody said anything. He asked whether, are you guys against? That's what I said. Are you guys against or for? Nobody, none of the council members except Mr. Wu said that he was against it. None of you guys said anything.
I just want to make sure
I'm 100% saying none of you guys, but you didn't take position. 300 people were there for people to listen to a position from you. It took you until 21, which is 11 days later, or 26, after a recall petition was filed that somehow...
Yeah, they had to talk to the back row.
Okay, yeah, and magically, this thing comes that you guys are opposed to it. Question is, if you
I'm
guys...
concerned though, sir, because you keep saying magically, and I'm asking you again, when did I...
Wait, don't interrupt him, he's got a plan.
You didn't... No. Yes, I am agreeing.
Okay, I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Mr.
I was for it.
I am 100% saying that you never took a position, but you didn't take a position against it. Every person in the town was against that position except one. That's what I saw anyway. Okay? But you didn't take a position. Now, we have a flyer.
We had an
mailer.
obligation to
Yes.
disclose the plans that were recommended by the professionals. Hence, there was never a vote
But there was
either
also-
or, because there was a
But
non-binding
I-
MOU again. And
Okay, so-
I appreciate everything you're saying, and
Okay,
we
good.
heard you at the meeting, but that was the purpose of the meeting,
So,
was that we
can I-
disclosed the information and we got your input.
Okay, so can I complete?
Yeah.
I went to the docket sheet of the court system. I saw the dates. I saw the documents of when the MOUs and other things were signed, or I was shocked to see that the judge had a letter saying, hey, when you guys are planning this zoning change, I forget the languages, I did not bring it here,
Yeah,
but it's
that's
there.
what I
She wrote to you guys in July something, I forget, it's there on the docket sheet. I was surprised and shocked to see that you guys said at that meeting that, hey, we have nothing. But the judge is telling you, there is basically the ordinance. Are you guys settling? And where is the ordinance to change it to the zoning?
That's
No,
inaccurate,
ordinance,
sir.
that's-
That's
No?
inaccurate.
That's my understanding.
No, that's-
Your
Next
understanding
meeting,
is correct.
next meeting, I'll bring it.
Yes.
Here is my last point, okay? You guys won't propose this. I think the town members, or people from town rather, would readily believe that if you actually appoint town members to be on the committee who will have the authority to settle with Normandy, or whose vote will be counted towards either fighting this litigation or settling. That's the only way we can believe that all of you guys are really in for the town people. That's all I have to say.
We live in
Thank
town
you.
too, sir. My kids are both in school. Like, I am tired of people saying, you guys. We're all in it together, okay?
I agree.
And as Mr., I'm sorry, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue.
I agree.
I don't plan to move, ever.
So I'm asking, why don't you bring in citizens from the committee, maybe form a committee, and they can be there, and they will have the power.
Because, again, the
taking-
whole thing with the MOU and everything else here is that this is all marked
This should-
confidential, and we cannot disclose to the
We're not
public.
interested, no, we're not interested. I know, I fight a lot of litigations, I've done that, and I understand the MOUs or whatever. But my last point here is, okay, if you guys can actually bring in citizens, okay, on the committee, who will actually decide to, whether to participate in settlement or to fight it, I think that might be the right solution. Otherwise, this is just whitewash which people can't believe. That's all I have to say.
I understand your point. I totally get that. Let me just finish this.
No,
Okay? I honestly have to understand the
But the
legal...
borough attorney sometimes pretends he's an elected official, so let's hear from him, okay?
I just want you to understand that
Yeah.
when you're in the middle of litigation, and all of this is involved in litigation,
Correct.
there is certain things that are required to be privileged between an attorney and a client, which I'm sure you understand. You said
Yes,
you're
sir.
very involved in litigation.
Yes.
If non-elected officials or non-employees of the borough are involved in a committee like that, then there is no attorney-client privilege, because that person...
They could
who
be
is a
appointed,
citizen-
no?
No, they can't be appointed
Then-
to that. I understand your point, and your
So
point
it's
is
not about
well
the
taken.
MOU. So it's not about the MOU. It's about whether we should be proceeding to settle or we should be litigating.
Right.
That should really be the choice, and ultimately...
We're going to
we-
make that decision tonight, sir.
What?
We're going to make that decision tonight. If you would
Yes.
have read what we handed out to you, you'd know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, I saw that.
Resolution.
I just did not understand the last part. My opinion on the resolution is that basically, let the court decide. There'll be appeals, there'll be everything else. What really the fair share of our borough is of Englewood Cliffs, and at that point, really attend to it.
Right.
It will take a long time. And what I don't understand, and I was looking at the definition of affordable housing and everything else, which factory worker or which poor people or which people are really going to come to Englewood Cliffs? And why do we have such a huge requirement of affordable housing, when you don't even have a train system, where you don't have a bus system? Are people going to spend thousands of dollars commuting to their job or whatever? When ordinary middle-class people can't afford it. So anyway, there are lots and lots of other things which should go into consideration, and I saw the resolution, but I think we should get into zoning or rezoning or all that thing, not just give a blank check here like the way it's given. It should be done after it's fully litigated and fully decided as to what our obligation should be. That's my opinion anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we actually just had two very teachable moments here. The gentleman who just spoke pointed out that we have a council, except for one person, who are unable to take a position on probably the most important issue. It's an existential issue for this town, until they saw which way the wind was blowing, okay? But, and some of them have been up here for, some of them have been up here for 6 years, following what the back row over there tells them to do, and some other people here. So that's a teachable moment. The second teachable moment here is that our borough council, Mr. Marinello, is basically telling people about how confidentiality works and everything. Meanwhile, the gentleman who's our borough council never actually informs me of anything, okay? All he does is tell that
I will
side.
say it again, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so this is not Edgewater, Mr. Marinello. This is Englewood
Only
Cliffs.
one time to ask me
We
anything
do
about
things
the town
different.
since March 5th.
Mr. Marinello,
Money, the
this
phone
is...
works. The number is 201-947-6600. You can call at any time you
Yeah,
want.
so you can also put me on some emails and copy me, but that's nice. By the way, if you really want to see something interesting, watch the John Stossel video on Edgewater from 1 year ago. This is very prominent, Mr. Marinello. It's a riot.
His client the way he's supposed to do.
Anybody else?
I even defend you.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
With Angels, right? And you called
Yes,
Englewood
sir.
Cliffs a swamp, I think you said?
Anybody else?
Right? What's the name of the New York City Angel? Yeah, the Guardian Angel.
Okay,
you call
so
it.
we have a resident speaking.
I'm Yehuda
we should play
Shekeli,
that.
16 Allison Drive, 27 years in town.
Sorry, can you repeat your name, sir?
Yehuda Shekeli, 16 Allison Drive, 27 years in Englewood Cliffs. Just want to focus first on those three experts that we are discussing their future. I recommend that they be dismissed as soon as possible, and has nothing to do with their credential. I think what we need is a different type of experts. We need social worker, we need criminologists, and we need law enforcement. Think about it, it's kind of right in front of you. We are going to add 500, 600 new units in a high-density environment, including about 200 to 300 youth over there. What do you think these youth are going to do every evening? They're going to, I can smell the pot they're going to drink, and alcohol, they're going to walk around, harass the restaurants. On top of this, you are going to have traffic issues, noise issues, and whatnot. By increasing the population like this in 25-30%, at the minimum, you're going to increase the budget of town by that percentage. And because we are talking about a high-density population, it will go 50%. So instead of overanalyzing the size of the school, of the classrooms, and 127 kids or 300 kids or whatever, look at the big picture. I mean, this is the first time we're going to kind of add, as the first witness said, 30% or more or less to the population in one shot. So right there, we are going, everything will increase. The other issue is, in the last session on July 10th, they talked about risk management. But the proposal that I understand was, if the town builds those 77 units, we're talking about annual shortfall of $120,000. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So $120,000 divided by 2,000 households, plus we have the commercials that pay, I don't know what percentages, but only a couple of $100 a year increase to the tax base. Don't forget also that Englewood Cliffs is one of the lowest tax base in the entire Berrien County. So, and this is fixed. I mean, we know exactly, there is no risk management here. That will be fixed for the foreseeable future. I'm sure that everybody is willing to spend that kind of money on an ongoing basis, as opposed to opening it up and having risk. I mean, it could be triple or quadruple. I mean, if just imagine the police department has to double in size, not to mention traffic issues, not to mention quality of life, and also open all the infrastructure, and sewer, and whatnot. So, essentially, these are my 2 points that I wanted to mention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard?
Maybe nice and pick that before.
Yes, in the back, thank you.
Well, this is my first time at a town meeting. 40 years in Englewood Cliffs. My name is Jean Gavami, 30 Snyder Road, Englewood Cliffs. I don't care Democrat, Republican. I want to see maybe us get rid of the lawyers that evidently are working with this corporation. They're certainly not working for the townspeople. Because you had 300 people, I understand, at your last meeting, with only one person who wanted whatever. So consequently, the townspeople do not want this situation with the housing up there. You don't want it, you can't even move, LG's coming in, I already see the traffic, because I'm very close to Sylvan Avenue. I can't even move to go to Cliffside Park at the time, from there. And that's without all these people that you intend to maybe let come in. And I don't understand what's gonna happen with the school system. We don't have a high school. So, it's a mess.
Good point. All of them, thank you.
And I hope you get rid of the lawyers you now have.
Thank you, I agree. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Yes.
Some people on the left, please.
Dan Fong from 255 Alfred Avenue. So I think from last meeting, we are very clear the resident is against to settle. We would like to keep on fighting. So today, I just want to remind everyone, it's not about what you said, it's more about what you have done, what you have to do. So I know it's maybe just half hour left. It's about time you make decision tonight. We will make decision later in November. We will fight for the best interest of the resident. Okay, that's it. I just want to remind everyone.
Thank you.
What has been last time and the action we observe as an officer.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard?
Mayor, maybe if everybody understood, listen, everything's always a little quicker in closed session, trying to go through things and present the resolution out for everyone to have a copy of. I don't know, your mayor gave everybody 5 minutes to read it, I hope it was enough time. But if you read that, you would understand that we're up here right now to actually listen to what you said. And I will get up and say my little 2 cents worth later, that I never make a decision until I hear from everybody. And I told you this, I told everybody here that several times at several meetings. I put it out in print several times at several meetings. And I promise you I wouldn't make a decision until I heard from everybody. And you're welcome. And that is what this is about tonight.
So why'd you sign the MOU?
We listened. Please don't interrupt me, Mayor. So we listened. It's okay.
We didn't sign the
It's okay. So the MOU that the mayor is going to run his campaign on is simply, all right, good. I'm glad you don't. I'm really glad you don't. Because if you pay attention and listen to me right now, you'll understand. It was a non-binding agreement to at least explore all the possibilities that I believe we as this council have a responsibility to you. to let you know exactly what our options
Ed, how do you explain a meeting that was set up?
I'm sorry, I have the floor, Bill, so let me finish.
All right, I'll let you finish.
And then you can speak all you want. So, if you understand that, and you do understand exactly how we did it, we did as transparently as we could, there are legal ramifications to what we say and don't.
Transparency, I didn't even know about it.
Mayor, you can whine all you want. So I just want to finish. So, you're here tonight, so hopefully help you understand. If you read the resolution, let me just finish. If you just read the resolution that is put in front of you tonight, you will see the council is going to vote to litigate, to continue the fight, as you all requested. Even though that might not be the wisest choice, I think we all agree here that I think we all agree.
There's a lot of risk, which is...
There's a lot of risk, we all understand that, but we're all willing to take that chance, that risk, to appease everyone and to try and keep our town the way it is.
I think we would all agree that there was tremendous public pressure placed, and that's why things have changed. The meeting that happened on July 10, when that meeting was first set up, it was, Ed, in your letter here, it says that, the special meeting was planned and only to be canceled by Mayor Kranjak. In reality, what he had wanted was a meeting where the public could not speak. And the mayor canceled the meeting because he was against that, and he believed the residents should have a chance to talk. Okay?
You're incorrect, Bill.
But that is exactly what happened.
Completely incorrect.
No, there you go then, Ed.
Okay.
All right, let's hear from Mrs. Fair.
Debbie Fair, 49 Irving Avenue. I'm curious that everyone else can...
If you speak out, you get thrown out, except for...
I think if you stand, then you're blocking their view, so if you sit down, it's easier.
No, I don't choose to sit down. I like to stand when I speak, and so I will stand. I really don't hear, and I will pick up the microphone. When the gentleman was speaking earlier, referring to the people think the town is stupid about why we have the situation, and obviously he was referring to the letter that went out and saying that the planning board is the reason that we have this situation. And I will say to you, it is not the people that sent the letter explaining how we came to this situation that thinks you're stupid. The people that think you're stupid are the people that are trying to make you think that the reason we have the situation is some other reason other than the planning board. The entire reason that we are put in the position that we are in, the reason that we have 20 acres of property which is now vulnerable to affordable housing, is because the planning board turned down a beautiful, perfect commercial application. Normandy, all they wanted to do, excuse me, if you're going to call me out, excuse me, it absolutely is true.
That is true. Okay, no, control the crowd.
Excuse me, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Let her speak.
And it's Mayor, you know what, Mayor? I would like to know why, if I say something from the audience, I get strike one and you threaten to throw me out. But when all of these people call out, it's perfectly okay and you encourage them.
You can continue. No, I just asked...
You disparage...
No, I just called it out for what it is.
You had appointed was the most horrible attorney.
She did a great job for us.
No, she did.
She did a great job for us.
She did not. Anyway, getting back to the facts. The facts are that Englewood Cliffs did not have any property in town that made us vulnerable to a 600 high-density units, 20% of which could be affordable housing. Because the previous administrations were always cognizant of this fact, and when beautiful applications came before the planning board to simply renovate the old Unilever building. It wasn't going up in height, there was not a lot of changes being made, and to turn that application down was a crime. And it was a crime against Englewood Cliffs. And if you want to talk about people that should resign, it should be every member of that planning board that voted no on that application. Because this is the only reason we are here today, is because we have this property available to us. And it was Mayor Kranjak's appointees on the planning board that turned that application down and made us vulnerable to this lawsuit that we have today, and all of the property, 20 acres now available, which has made our number of affordable housing units skyrocket. Earlier on, for decades, we only had a 9-unit obligation. Yes, that might go up a little.
How many were built?
Over the years. How many were built? They were not.
How many did your administration build?
Excuse me, you're allowed to heckle me, but I can't heckle you. We filed every single appropriate plan on time with the courts and with COA.
How many were
We
built?
never, ever missed a deadline.
How many were
It
built?
wasn't necessary yet. It was still being discussed.
Okay.
But you, when you became mayor, you did absolutely nothing. Excuse me. You did absolutely nothing on affordable housing. You missed every single deadline for 2 years. You didn't file
Not
anything.
true.
I was in the, oh, yes, it is, because I was in the courtroom when Judge Farrington admonished you and said, where has Englewood Cliffs been for the last 2 years? We have not gotten
I thought she
any
said for the last 40 years.
I said 2 years.
She said the last 42 years.
She did not. I was in that courtroom. I heard exactly what she said. We never missed a deadline. You missed every single deadline for 2 years. You did nothing. You are the one that jeopardized our community, and your planning board is the one that turned down that application, and that is why we're in this situation today. If that property were being commercially developed, we would not be here today in this situation. And for you to go around and tell people that that's not true, that is a lie, and also to have your little minions out there telling people that they can sign a petition and this will all go away, that's not true either. We are stuck with this situation, and it's your fault, and it's your planning board's fault. This is exactly why we have it. We would not have it if it weren't for you and your appointees on the planning board.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, everybody, it's okay. I just want to mention that I have unwavering support from my planning board and for the planning board chairman, Russell Perino, who's here tonight. He's done a great job. The planning board and Russell were smart enough to recognize what Normandy was actually trying to do.
I have a 3-page decision.
They were trying to get the right to subdivide this property, which was not acceptable. And if you ever wondered what $10,000 buys you in this town, it's exactly what you just saw here, because that was a $10,000 bonus that the former mayor gave her. Mrs. Fair got a $10,000 bonus. That no one can figure out where it came from, but she got it, and that's what it buys you, okay? You know what, you could use in the pulpit to be political. Anybody else wishing to be heard?
Yeah.
Anybody else wishing to be heard? Yes.
All you can do is personal attacks because you have no facts. You saw your personal attacks. I told the truth.
Okay, facts have no feelings, please stop.
Tony Senator, 36 Rock.
Hold on. Oh, come on, let's be respectful of each other. The resident needs to speak.
Excuse me, Tony Senator, 36 Rock Road. I'd like to ask that everybody just shut up and let me speak, and that we don't really need comments from anybody in the back, both sides, and if you'd like to say something, come up here and say it.
That's okay, you have the floor, you have the floor.
Very rude, these people are residents, whether you disagree with people or not, they still have their opinion.
Thank you.
You can't act like this, people, please. So my understanding, Mayor, was similar to the lady who just spoke. So it's obvious, nobody in this room wants this. Nobody, okay? So now, what do we do at this point? okay? So what do we dealt with? Normandy, because for whatever reason, if they wanted to do this subdivision to make the units or not, whichever way they were going, right now, they are using our lack of housing or affordable housing against us and putting the gun right between our heads, and they're bringing this to the state. It is not just our decision, people, okay? We don't want this. Everybody agrees with that. But they're taking this to the state now, okay? And they're gonna bring, now, we wanna fight it. Yes, we all agree. And I would like to fight it as well, okay? But I don't wanna go to the point of the finish, but I do have a couple questions. How come, I don't know, could somebody explain to me, how come, where did it change that they were going to do the subdivision in the office building and then to the apartments?
That's a real good question. They had several hundred documents ready to be filed, I think it was within 10 days, and there was a holiday in between, I think, as well. Their intention was never to do commercial. Their intention was to do residential. They had hundreds of pages ready to file an application for residential. And I know there's other people here in this audience who were in a meeting with me. Mrs. McMorrow, former council president McMorrow, was in that meeting with me.
All right.
She was there.
There's a decision by the court,
And-
right? And can I be heard, please? Because I have the decision right here. It's a 30-page document from Judge Farrington, and this is also in Pacer, and you guys could all look it up, okay?
I was just answering his question, though. Can I finish
Okay,
answering the question?
BRL 9088-17.
Let me just finish answering his question.
And
All right.
whether-
The other thing is that when we sat down with them,
Right.
they actually admitted to us that they never intended to do residential.
Right.
Never intended to do commercial. They admitted to us that they always wanted to do
The
residential.
judge said the decision was arbitrary and capricious. I was talking, and then he cut me off.
Oh, God.
All right. You can speak.
You can look back
Just, the point of the question was not to point blank. I just want to understand it that, because there's a lot of information being thrown at all of us. So, I do believe that the Downs and the R's, they do not want this. I truly believe that. Everybody has to understand that. But now we're in a position where we need to minimize this to the best of our ability here. So, we have to kind of work together. I believe that we have to fight it as best we can. And, if we could start, I don't know, is there another plan that we could start, working on as well and use that as leverage against the state, against Normandy? I don't really know how it works. And I've been hearing that if we didn't have property, we weren't susceptible to this.
So here's where we're going. In January of 2019, what we had done in 2018 was adopted by this council, and our professionals actually got up in front of the planning board and said it's a good plan, it's a viable plan, it's a defensible plan, and if it falls short, we have the right to cure. So that's the plan that we are going back to now, and we will continue fighting Normandy and anyone else that tries to restrict our ability to solve our own problems. Okay, so to answer your question, the Hudson Terrace plan is what we're working on, yeah.
All right, and the one other question, so the information about, was the information about subdivision, was that lawyer-client privilege also, and could it be discussed? I don't know much about what happened.
The decision?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know what you're asking is procedurally, how do we get here, right? So procedurally, what happened is they submitted a plan, the planning board denied it, then basically they sued for a builder's remedy, and that's why we're here. And the builder's remedy basically says now, because the planning board denied their application for a commercial building, now we're going to try to do affordable housing. There's enough acreage there, we're going to build residential. That's where we are right now procedurally. As far as the judge's decision on why the planning board did what they did, even though it's a 30-page document, you guys should read it, you can say that the intentions were, but there's nothing to prove that any of their intentions. And so the decision that the planning board made, and these are the words from the judge, quote unquote, was arbitrary and capricious. They really had no,
And unreasonable.
yeah, and unreasonable. And so that was the decision. You guys can read it. You can agree or disagree with it. It's up to you guys. But there is a decision. It's 30 pages by the judge.
But could I just add, our planning board followed our ordinances. That is a commercial property. So it's not arbitrary and capricious to keep something that's commercial, right?
In defense of everyone.
All right, you have to sit there and just relax. You can't, this is not good for you. Why are you yelling out?
So look, I understand what you're saying, but I can't believe that anybody would have wanted that anyway. You understand what I'm saying?
No, we're all on the same page.
So even if they did decide that, I don't think that Mayor Granddad or Bill will want an 800-unit building. Okay? No one's going to...
And no one has ever said that, Mr. Salvatore. Nobody has ever suggested that.
I'm not saying you said that, but what I'm saying is, I don't believe they wanted it either. I don't really know the procedure of how we got to this point. But I just think at this point, though, I kind of like the idea of changing the expert, because, from them going from one position to the other position is not really, I just don't think it's in the best interest of the town. Maybe we could get the judge to buy some more time by changing experts. I don't know. Maybe the judge will understand the fact that they went from flip-flop, and for whatever reason, maybe they changed because of the position we are now in and the timing of it. I know we're under certain time constraints as well. Isn't that correct?
There was no flip-flop, right? Basically, it was a plan that was never sealed. Like, right? It was all just a recommendation. It was a baseline negotiation. Nothing was signed, and that's what we keep telling you, right? And we are here today.
Nothing?
I didn't sign
Nothing
it.
binding.
MOU was signed.
Nothing
I
binding.
was signed it with a
There was a flip-flop. It was the biggest flip-flop this town has ever seen, okay? We spent 2018, we spent 2018 saying to the professionals, what do we need to do to comply with our requirements? And we paid them for this, and they gave us a plan, okay? And we said, can you defend this plan? Yes, we can defend this plan. They got up in front of everybody here and said the same thing. And then, what happened was power changed in the council.
The mayor's leaving out a lot of
The
information.
council
That's not
flipped,
right. Mayor,
and
that's not
next
right.
thing you know, there's an MOU being signed
That's not right, Mayor.
with Normandy, Fisher Health,
That's an untrue.
and now we're going back.
So, I want to apologize for my lack of knowledge and the word flip-flop that I used. That's my lack of knowledge of what happened. I apologize.
No, it's exactly what happened. They flip-flopped.
But in my understanding, I don't know, maybe, listen, if we could, collectively agree to do the first step, and maybe we could continue to build upon that and work together to get this settled. That's what I'm...
Mr. Senator, this council is going to vote tonight, and the committee is going to recommend to litigate. The reason we're recommending to litigate is because we've heard from the people, and this is the will of the people. But I want to make it very clear that comes with substantial risk. We have been warned by our professionals, and that's all of them, including Mr. Troutner, who the mayor says we will be keeping on, feels that we should not move forward with litigation. He feels that the risks are substantial. Okay, so remember, we've done our due diligence. We know what our options are now. Okay, we've heard from the people. You've seen what the option was. You've made it clear that that's not what the people want. We're going to move forward we're going to vote to move forward. The committee is going to recommend that. But keep in mind, it comes with substantial risk. You know, what you're not hearing here is there's several pieces. Please let me, the risk is that the court could turn around and still let Normandy build, and we would have to build 78 units. So there are many different risks that we could be taking here. Now, we can't talk about them and what we're going to do to try to minimize that impact, because we're going to vote to go to litigation. Once we do that, we're going to have to keep our comments to the public. Basically, we're not going to be able to discuss that with the public. It's going to be in litigation. So we're doing what we believe the people want us to do. It's coming with risk, okay? How we got here, now I'm not going to sit here and start pointing fingers, but, you know, they have a builder's remedy suit. We filed for an extension of our immunity 3 days before it was about to expire, okay? So we were literally a week without. And that's when Normandy came in. And whether they had this planned or they didn't have it planned, it happened. And that's why we have to deal with this builder's remedy suit. And that's one of our risks. So that's what I can tell you.
I appreciate everything. Everybody's spending a lot of time. There's a lot of aggravation. And, you know, collectively, you know, I just hope you guys, you know, try to make the right decision for the town. And I think, I know you guys will. And I thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? So, just come on up.
This number 1, page 5, number 1, says they can rezone and get buffer zone or do these buffers and stuff because it has extended more. Number 1,
So we are, saying that to voluntarily comply and rezone, but only the plan that we had proposed. Originally, this was presented to me this evening, it was very broadly written. I said we should just limit it to the Hudson Terrace plan that we had, and that's it, no other rezoning. And, I asked also for the MOU to be terminated, which, they haven't agreed to yet.
So that's what it says, except if the judge says you need to do X, Y, Z, we will also comply with what the judge says is what... Okay?
Well, it's subject to appeal, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
Look, I think, honestly, I think the courts are in a bad position here, right? Because what do judges usually do? They have to look at things that happened in the past and deal with past problems. Here, they've actually become planners. So I think it's a very interesting situation here in New Jersey. No other state has this. And it's not making sense. I know John Bramnick, who's the Senate Minority Leader, and Loretta Weinberg, who's actually your senator, people, she's a Senate Majority Leader. Bramnick's been trying to get this on the agenda and deal with a state solution. So I think you should all call your state senators. It's Loretta Weinberg for us. She needs to hear from you. This is something that could be solved logically without creating undue burdens on towns like ours. That's all I can really say right now. I've got a lot of feelings about this, but I was told not to say too much. Yes.
I just have a little bit thoughts on this. Angela Chen, 22 Sarah Hill. I just have a little bit of thoughts on this. So, a lot of towns are facing the same situation. I know Milburn is facing the same situation. I saw an article on it. It's the same thing that there's an empty land. Originally, there's like only 40 or 50 units will be built on that piece of land. But because they didn't satisfy the affordable housing compliance thing, so they are forced to build a lot more, several hundred units. So I know Gloucester is definitely facing the same situation. So have any of, the mayors, or I don't know about the procedures, but our mayors getting together and say, can we towns get together and all get the people maybe calling the senators or doing something and to reflect our concerns? Because definitely none of the districts can afford that. So,
That's a good point. I mean, we similarly situated mayors will speak, like I will speak, but you have to understand that this problem should be solved by the legislature. And the legislature is controlled by one party. I won't make this a political thing. It's controlled by one party who, and that party is fine with all this, apparently, because they've let it continue. And you know what? Republican governors in the past also could have fixed this with the legislature, but didn't. So what do people do when they don't want to make a decision? Well, let's let the courts decide. And the courts aren't equipped to plan towns. I mean, that's not what courts are for, but that's what they're being used for in New Jersey. You have a good point. That's why I'm suggesting you all call Loretta Weinberg, Gordon Johnson, Valerie Huddle. They need to hear from you.
But what you have to understand is there are 330 towns, 300 of them have settled, leaving 30. So the percentages, most people don't go to court and fight. You have 2 towns that did, they both lost. So that's why I say fighting comes with substantial risk. That's my concern. But we are going to listen to the voice of the people, and we are going to litigate. But remember, 90% of the towns that were in litigations have settled. They didn't leave it up to the courts to decide.
But if we provide a good plan to them, then we have a chance to win, right?
We're going to try our best.
I believe our
But
plan...
nobody has won.
I believe our plan, as I asked the professionals last year, accomplished everything we needed to accomplish. And not only that, but we had meetings with the Fair Share Housing people about that plan and the master, and things are going fine. I don't know what happened. I don't know why they just stopped pursuing that plan, but it's New Jersey, so I let your imaginations run wild.
So is there any, like, deadline that we have to comply to, that right now, say, you know, because there's a court, there's going to be what's the...
The status compensate tomorrow.
What's the trial?
October, there's a trial scheduled in October or a fairness hearing. If there's a settlement, there'll be a fairness hearing. If there's no settlement, there'll be a trial in October of this year.
And if the result is not in favor of us, we can go to, like, the appeal.
I was told you could appeal certain decisions, but you also need an appellate court to accept your appeal, to hear
So do we need
it.
to send the plan in before the court date to let them know that we do have something solid?
Well, so what's happening is tomorrow there's a status conference, and the lawyers for Normandy standing in the doorway back there, and he's got his court reporter here, and they'll all get up in front of the judge, and they'll talk about it, and they'll explain where Englewood Cliffs stands, and we have a plan. We'd like to solve our own problems our own way.
We're for that.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Yes.
Karen Geiger, 270 Alfred, and a plaintiff in case 9088, which was decided by Judge Farrington, so I can speak to that as well. I sued the planning board asking that that the site at 800 Sylvan Avenue be deemed a corporate housing site. That's what I sued for. The mayor ties me into affordable housing, but that was not the case. And at the trial, Judge Farrington, the same judge who is listening and hearing and deciding on affordable housing, a different case, said that she found it odd that no mention was included in any of the borough's plans of 800 Sylvan Avenue. And she further said that she found that the planning board had acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner in denying the subdivision, and she approved the subdivision. She also added that shared parking, which was one of the variances, had been denied in an arbitrary and capricious manner, and she approved that. So there were two items
I see a lot of head shaking no, so
Well, you weren't there.
well, I believe that it's being appealed
I
also.
am a party to the case, and
You sued the town?
I'm telling you what happened. So did you. But that case is not the issue at hand today. The borough voted in the planning board not to approve Normandy's corporate application. They then used the loopholes, and I'll call it the clever loopholes in the law, and used the affordable housing litigation as a means to manipulate the borough, and I use those words appropriately and carefully. Normandy, I believe, is in this for one reason. They want to make money. And the more money they make, the happier they are. That is their goal, and there's no doubt in my mind that that is what they want to do. They don't care about Englewood Cliffs at all. They care about their bottom line. If their bottom line was served by corporate, they'd be building corporate today. But it isn't. They have now found, because they were turned down, another avenue to pursue. And that avenue is the affordable housing lawsuit and a builder's remedy lawsuit. Now, we are sitting here fighting a lawsuit that began in 2015. Normandy intervened and was granted intervener status in a lawsuit in which the Fair Share Housing Center has long been a party. They have been a party to the 330 cases, of which 300 have settled. 90%, rather than go to trial. Now, Governor Christie, who I actually supported, was not in favor of affordable housing. And as a result of his lack of support, I believe, of affordable housing, what he did is he made the Council on Affordable Housing, which is a state agency, he left it in turmoil. They basically, for a period of many, many years, could not make decisions that were not challenged in court about municipalities' affordable housing obligations. Many municipalities, at least 330 of them, couldn't resolve their affordable housing obligations. They were in the same position as we were. They didn't build, or they didn't build to the numbers they were required. And when the Council on Affordable Housing was rendered obsolete by the Supreme Court in Mount Laurel 4, which basically took away jurisdiction from a conflicted and inoperative council and gave it back to the courts, we wound up in a very bad place. We wound up in a bad place, which is where we are today. No one in this community wants any housing built at 800. We want it to be corporate. There's no question in my mind. I don't think you'd find a single resident who would favor residential housing over corporate housing on that side.
We found one the other day.
I wasn't there.
We missed you.
But that's not the position we're in today. That's not where we are. We are embroiled in year 3, because it's been going on since 2015, of an affordable housing lawsuit, which has now germinated into a builder's remedy lawsuit, which is pending in the appellate court as we speak. And we have very significant decisions to make. And my concern, having listened to 12 segments, because I missed the meeting on July 10th, is that our experts failed the community in one major respect. Only one. they didn't outline the risk. And I really fear for this community. I'm very happy I'm not making the decision that each of you have to make tonight, because the risk of not settling is overwhelming, as Mr. Serenian said. But as Mrs. Sabari said, we don't know whether the courts will say to us, you can build what you want to build, those 77 or 57 units plus 20, and then Normandy, you've got 20 acres, go ahead and build the balance. We don't know that that's not what the courts will say. We don't know that the courts will extend our immunity. If we don't have immunity extended, we are in trouble, because any developer with acreage or anybody who wants to buy property can file a builder's remedy lawsuit, and it doesn't matter what we want. It doesn't matter how protective our zoning is. It all doesn't matter. It's in the hands of the court, and that is dangerous for a community such as ours.
Thank you.
You gave everybody else the right to speak. I think I am going to speak as well, unless the council wants to cut me off.
This council will never have you off. You got them up here. So what...
Then I am going to finish.
Mrs. Geiger, you're like 2 minutes over, so...
Okay.
So, you and I don't agree on a lot of things, but I will agree with you that Normandy is manipulative, and they manipulated you to a T, because you sued on their behalf.
I sued on behalf of the residents of Englewood.
So, you hurt the town.
To have corporate housing on that site.
You hurt the town.
I won.
You couldn't just support your planning board, right? You couldn't just support them.
Made, in my judgment, the biggest mistake that any planning board could have made, and no planning board before them ever did, which is they allowed 20 acres of land to be considered vacant. And the only way in which you get an expanded affordable housing obligation in the state of New Jersey is when you have vacant and available land. We didn't have any until this planning board said no to corporate development, and that is the fact.
Thank you.
Our obligation rose from 4 units or 9 units in 2015 to in excess of 129. And if you look at Judge Jacobson's decision, you'll understand the depth of the problems we may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was in shambles, and we took it down.
Okay. All right, Ms. Geiger, thank you for your comments. Most of them were wrong.
That's not appropriate, Mayor.
Well, Ms. Geiger publishes the Eye on the Cliffs newsletter, which is supposed to be nonpartisan. It was started by Deborah Frere over there and Debbie Savari, nonpartisan, right? But it's a newsletter that's nonpartisan. Put it first, you should. Always put it first.
There's no authors or people who put names on that piece of article. There's no names at all in that article. Right? Started.
Lauren Eastwood, 4 Willow Drive. Lauren Eastwood, 4 Willow Drive. First, I'd like to address Ms. Park's most recent comment. I'm right in front of the microphone. I don't know what else to tell you. Putting Englewood Cliffs First is clearly labeled as a publication of the Englewood Cliffs Republican Organization.
Where is it labeled?
It's right on the...
Who are, because I think they put president, vice president, whoever the authors are. Putting Englewood Cliffs First, are you the author? Do you write for it?
It's really none of your business.
I see. Okay, so, you brought it up, Lauren. I didn't say anything other than there's no authors on that piece of paper, so...
It's an internal publication, clearly identified as a publication of the Englewood Cliffs Republican Organization.
And you were one of the writers, correct?
And
use the microphone.
And unlike Ms. Geiger's publication, which masquerades as a nonpartisan publication, and in fact is a Democratic publication and should be registered as such. 800 Sylvan Avenue.
I think we all agree we don't want housing there. But I think another point that needs to be discussed and seems to have gotten lost is how completely unsuitable that site is for affordable housing. For any of us who pay car insurance bills, and I think that's probably everybody in this room, I think we all know how expensive having a car is in New Jersey. I have no idea if you can't afford a car, and we are required to include housing for extremely low-income families there. If you can't afford a car, how are you getting to a supermarket from 800 Sylvan Avenue? How are you getting to a drugstore from 800 Sylvan Avenue? Having commuted in the days before there were a lot of options via the 9A to New York City, which is the only bus service up that far, I can assure you, you do not want to be relying on the 9A to get your groceries. I also want to address an email which was sent out earlier this month on Councilwoman Sabari's official email address. I didn't get this email. However, someone I know who is on the same recreation list that I'm on, and is on only that recreation list and no other list, did receive that email. And I'd like to know why emails being sent from borough email addresses, official emails, are being selectively sent to some people, while other people are being deleted from the list. I would think after the decision in President Trump's Twitter case about the use of official communications, everybody would understand that that's not okay. I also have some concerns about the Open Public Meetings Act, which requires disclosure of anything before a meeting that is reasonably known. I find it very hard to believe that in that very long closed session, you typed this. This was prepared beforehand.
True, I had asked that it be distributed, but the council wanted to go over it in closed session first, and...
Our attorneys needed to discuss it with the council as a whole before we gave that out to the public. That's why.
Well, actually...
Litigation is privileged confidential.
Actually, the residents right, actually, because like all other resolutions that get discussed in closed session, we should have produced this one also. So I was a little annoyed that we didn't. Guys standing up in the doorway in the back, and you sit down, we can't have it's a fire hazard, I'm told. So, yes, that's you, and that's also you, sir. Please sit down, out of the doorway. Mr. Luciano, thank you.
I'm also concerned about a statement that was made by Councilman Aversa earlier tonight about this council is going to vote to. It's fine to say this council is going to vote, but the outcome of the vote should not be known before the vote is taken.
Well, we discussed it in closed session.
And it's on the resolution.
The committee made a recommendation. That's what he was referring to.
Exactly, it's coming out for vote tonight.
The tape speaks for itself. Finally, I would like to point out that in addition to Ms. Fair being a former borough clerk who got a $10,000 raise that the council never voted on, her husband was a former chairman of the planning board who was not reappointed by the current mayor.
Thank you, timed that very well. Yes, sir.
Russell Polino, 220 Fairview Avenue. I am chairman of the planning board, as most people I think know by now. And some statements were made tonight that were lacking truth, is maybe how I'll put it. For those members of the public who are not aware, and I'll start by saying I have no issue with Normandy Real Estate per se. I have no bias against them as a developer or any applicant that comes before the board. Not then, not now, not in the future. So I try to measure my words carefully whenever I speak at the microphone here. So how I'm going to start is that the planning board and the members of the council have heard this before. Some of the members of the public maybe have not. We had 4 meetings in 2017 where Normandy made their application before our board. At the end of it, there were really 2 issues, one being a major issue, which is the subdivision that was demanded by Normandy. They were asked probably dozens of times about that subdivision and would they consider waiving it. Our professionals asked them about that subdivision that included parking 270 cars on someone else's property. It defied the municipal land use law. It defies our own zoning ordinances as well, too. Normandy asked for a vote, and we voted. I think the one thing I want to bring to the public's attention and to the council, this question of the subdivision, which the mayor brought up. If you look at the plan that was presented to the planning board, and it's public information, anybody can look it up, there's a subdivision line drawn on the property where they want to subdivide it for an 8 acre, it was 28 acres before they want to divide the two pieces. An 8 acre, which is where Unilever would remain, 20 acres for the rest of their commercial redevelopment project. Interestingly enough, if you look at the slide presentation from a couple of weeks ago, the subdivision line is in the same place. Now, I won't draw any conclusions to that, because I wouldn't want to indicate any bias, but members of the public and members of the council should think about what that means. For those that say there's no connection between their application for commercial redevelopment and their application to file as an intervener in our affordable housing litigation, should just look at that and think for a minute. Maybe the members of the planning board had the experience to see that maybe something was wrong there. And no, I'm not finished. When I'm done, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay, so I've heard probably a couple of hundred applications, either as a planning board member or as a developer. I'm not embarrassed to say I'm in the real estate development business. I've seen applications many times. With that comes some experience. All right, so those that get up and say that they know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, claiming it to be fact, that if the planning board didn't deny that application, we wouldn't be here today, is I can't even put a word on it. It's silly. It's
Everybody knows
it's ludicrous. All right, that's the word I'll leave it with. Let's talk about the court for a minute. The planning board has appealed the decision of Judge Farrington, and she did overturn part of the decision that we made. She also remanded part of it back to the board. Okay, so someone that's mentioned that she overturned 2 different items. It's not true. One of the 2 was not. It was remanded back. We feel, this is the consensus of the board and our council, that we will prevail on appeal, because we feel strongly that we had the right to deny that subdivision. All right, so I stand behind it, and we look forward to clearing that up, hopefully in the future. One point I'll bring up was back when LG was appealed by some of the same people that are in this room here. When it went before the Superior Court, the decision of the Board of Adjustment in that case was upheld. I didn't think it should be upheld. I didn't think the Board of Adjustment had the right to approve a building 4 times the height, right? So be it. Sure enough, when it went to the appellate division, they then overturned it. So, just because one judge makes a ruling, and they use the words arbitrary and capricious, that's the words they use every single time that they either remand or overturn an approval or denial. Those are the words they use. So, they're great buzzwords, but they don't mean anything. It's standard language.
I have a question,
That
though.
seems like a short bell there, I don't know.
No, it
How
was
many
5
minutes you
minutes.
doing? 5 minutes? Okay.
Yes,
I had,
and the mayor saw as well.
I didn't see it.
so go ahead.
What was the vote? Anyway, it was 7 people, right? So what was the
I
vote?
believe it was 5-2.
5-2?
I
It wasn't a
believe.
split?
It was a split vote.
Okay,
Well,
so
maybe,
what,
let's see.
what was the, was it? Well, because,
It was-
you know,
it
if
was a
everybody,
split
if
vote.
it was, no,
It was-
if
that's right,
everybody
it was
was
4-3,
together to
correct.
vote together, I want to know if there was 7
No,
people.
no, it was a split vote.
It was a split 4-3, and you had the last 4th vote, swaying it one way,
As
right?
chair, I may have voted first, I may have voted last. I think I may have asked for the,
So it wasn't like,
motion.
you know, a sweeping decision to deny the application, right?
That's right, that's the sign of a healthy board, actually. when you
Well,
got a
I just
decision.
want to, you know, us too, right? If you put
Right.
it that way, this is a healthy, you know,
Agreed.
exchange of information, so,
And what's
okay.
your point?
I just wanted to know, I wasn't sure.
I'm just going to make a couple more quick comments. You know, there's been some statements made by certain council people here that their minds weren't made up and that they wanted to hear the public first. Carol McMorrow found the fact that an MOU was signed by accident on the eCourt's website. That was around 2 months after that MOU was executed. All right, so the members of the committee obviously had made a conscious decision to instruct their lawyer to sign it. So please don't sit here tonight and say you hadn't, in your own minds, made a decision as to how you think it should go. The public was
That's
not
true.
included until more than 2 months after the MOU was executed. So please don't sit here and give us that story that...
That's
they were
inaccurate,
included.
Russ.
No, that's very accurate,
Just because-
and I was excluded as well.
Because it's agreed
Can't
to.
backpedal that much, Mr.
It's
Aversa.
non-binding, Mario, and you know it. It's a non-binding. It's just like
That was,
anything else, Russ.
you know, a memorandum of understanding is a memorandum of where your understanding was at that point in time. That's where you were headed, until you saw a show of hands of 300 to 1, saying we don't want residential housing. And then you did the classic vice versa, right? Oh, I gotta change my idea.
Let's say that's true, Mario. Let's just say it is. Is that not what you people want? Do you not want us to listen to you?
Well, you should have, like, enough intelligence not to do something dumb without this, right?
Saying that we're not listening.
Mario, you are twisted. So
Well, I'm not twisted, actually, I am very principled. I know exactly where I'm heading, and I know where this town wants to be. I don't need to try to sneak things through in the darkness of night, as you are accustomed to doing.
a clip to keep your point straight, whereas I will listen to everybody and make my...
You made a bad decision. You're unable to make independent decisions without looking at who's gonna tell you what to do, yes.
Carol McMorrow, 489 Summit Street. Mr. Aversa, you need to start telling the truth. You lied to this public, you got caught, and now the truth is coming out. No, I'm not waiving anything.
I'm not going to interrupt you to let you speak, so
No,
please.
please don't, but you
You
lied
like your
to
story,
the
so
public.
please continue.
Okay. I'm gonna take you down memory lane again, for the record, because you lied again before. This is Albert Wunsch, ladies and gentlemen. Albert Wunsch was the borough attorney at the time this council appointed him. On February 8th, he gave a certification. If a lawyer signs a certification, it's supposed to be truthful. Number 31 states in Mr. Wunsch's certification, since January 3rd, 2019, for the public's sake, January 3rd was the day that Debbie Sabari and Jimmy Song got sworn in. Since January 3rd, 2019, the council had authorized me to reach out to Normandy, 800 Sylvan, and begin serious and beneficial negotiations. Now, if Mr. Versa is telling the truth, and he's saying that they had no idea about what decision they were going to make yet, why did they instruct Mr. Wunsch on January 3rd to reach out and settle this? They made their mind up, ladies and gentlemen.
That's not true, Carol. You're telling stories. You're telling stories again,
You
Carol.
authorize your lawyer to negotiate speak to the other
Stop.
side, you might know what it is that you want.
You just need- That's what you do, that's called a discussion.
I have no respect for you if you say, hey, listen.
You have no respect for me anyway, so it doesn't
I
matter.
don't have respect for people that lie. I don't, I'm sorry.
Look in the mirror.
You made decisions, they were wrong decisions. 400 people came out and spoke up, one after another, and told you you were wrong. And now you're backpedaling. Just take ownership and own what you did. I want on E-courts again. And by the way, if it wasn't for me coming forward at the June 12th meeting and downloading that letter, you still would have been lying to this public.
Right.
Ms. Sabari, Mr. Song, Ms. Park, Mr. Aversa, and, Ms. O.
Lying about what? Gathering information? When did the planning board or this council come out to the public with their 77-unit plan? You never even came out to the public. How do you hold yourself higher than thou when you did not listen to the public?
Stop harassing the resident.
Attacking me.
Stop harassing the
This
resident, please.
resident is making her comments, and I'm gonna tell you that you did not go out to the public or listen to the public when you had your 77-unit
Mr.
plan.
Barry, have some decorum,
When
please.
someone is wrong, they have to attack, and that's what you're doing.
Oh, no, you're lying.
No, I'm
Mr.
not.
Luciano,
You're lying.
No, I'm
don't get out from there, you have to leave the
You're lying.
floor.
Okay, you need to stop.
That's not a good way to behave.
No, you need to stop
You have
interrupting
to
me.
stop
I had the
lying
floor.
about me
I'm not
and what
lying
I've
about
done.
you, miss, at
Yes,
all.
you are, miss.
January 3rd. Mayor, can you get her under control?
No, I can't, but she'll eventually pipe down and then you can speak. So
No,
let's give her a minute
Well,
to stop lighting her hair on fire and let's give her a minute.
I have a right to state what I want to state. If she wants to comment when I'm
Look,
done.
it-
And if it's untrue, I have the right to say it's
Mr.
untrue.
Barry, will you just stop, let her speak?
No.
Will you please?
No, she
Stop
did
ha-
the same thing to me
You know
when
what?
she was up
If
here.
you want to howl at the moon, go outside,
did.
don't do it in here.
No.
No, it's on video. I did not. She spoke.
All right. Ms. McMorro, you can go ahead. And if she interrupts you again, you can stop.
I don't want to be... On June 12th, I brought to the attention of this council that there was a letter on E-Courts reflecting the fact that in April, you had directed Mr. Wunsch to sign, or somebody, I don't know who, to sign, the Mount Laurel Committee, to sign a memorandum of understanding. And you had no intention of bringing that out to the public. It wasn't until I brought it out to the public that you then immediately said, we need to hold an informational meeting. Those are the facts.
It's all because of you, Carol.
That's disrespectful.
Well, you know what?
It's true.
Say, I did this, I
But
did
I
that, no, it's not true.
I'm stating the fact.
That's not a fact.
It is a fact.
No, that's your opinion.
No, it's not. It's on video. You're interrupting me.
Yeah, okay.
You need to grow up. You need to grow up and stop.
I need to grow up.
Yeah.
All right.
You need to stop lying.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here. Ms. Marinello, I'm not going to sit here and be called a liar. by these
He's,
council members.
you
When I
don't, you speak to me, don't speak to him. Ms. McMorro? Ms. McMorro?
I know they appoint
Ms. McMorro, he doesn't have any,
you are an officer of the court, and you represent this borough, not the Democratic Party.
no, he doesn't know
I
that.
need you to have them stop calling me a liar, because
Ms. McMorro, just, you're not gonna get anywhere with him. Ms. McMorro.
No, what I said, sir, was...
Look, folks, just stop, everybody. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Well, Mayor, respectfully, there's a difference in what Mr. Marinello is now playing the game on. What I stated was, the statement that Mr. Aversa said was a lie. I referenced a specific statement, something he said to the public. She's just generally calling me a liar. That's calling me a liar.
All right, well, she's right, because that is exactly what you did. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so, on June 11th, one day after the meeting at Upper School, Jeff Serenian wrote a letter to the court regarding the upcoming July 12th case management conference. Mr. Serenian confirmed in writing that it was going to be a closed conference. I found that to be very interesting, that there was going to be a closed conference. All discussions were closed that day. On July 16th, Mr. Serenian submitted a form of order to Judge Barrington where number 2 says, quote, "The court will conduct a case management conference on July 18th, and at 4 p.m. if the borough introduces an ordinance on first reading to rezone the 800 Sylvan site on or before 7/17/19. Mr. Mehta, I don't know if he's still here, brought this up before, and you told him he was wrong when he referenced this. He's not wrong. That was in the July 16th, 19 letter. Later that day, Judge Barrington signed an order where number 2 read, "The court will conduct a case management conference on July 18th at 4 p.m., at which time the borough shall advise as to the status of its efforts regarding the intro and passage of the ordinance accepting the settlement agreement for 800 children." On July 24th, a case scheduling order was entered into again. Number 2, the court will conduct a case management conference on July 30th at 4 p.m., at which time the borough shall advise as to the status of its efforts regarding the introduction and passage of the ordinance regarding the settlement agreement. Now, what's interesting to me is, Mayor, on July 21st, Ms. Sabari, on official borough letterhead, selectively, and I'd like to know why I was taken off that list, Ms. Sabari. I'm a resident of this town. You don't have a right to play with borough email lists.
I don't know why you're on the list.
I was taken off of an email list, along with other residents in this town, and I'm asking you to look into that. That is improper as an elected official to play with borough email lists.
Yeah, I was taken off as well, by the way.
But I'm asking the borough attorney to look into that.
I didn't get the email. I don't know why.
Oh, Jimmy, you're speaking.
No, seriously, I didn't get the email.
Well, can you look into Lambert first before you look into that?
Some accuser, I didn't get the email, so.
Then have him look, you think this is
No, I'm
funny?
just saying, I'm not saying it's funny. I'm not saying it's funny.
All right, go ahead.
I'm telling the truth too, so.
Go ahead.
On July 21st, Mrs. Sabari advised the town they were going to be fighting this. Then why, Mr. Marinello, didn't you advise Judge Barrington that you were fighting this and taking this to court? Why did you allow Judge Barrington to enter her order on July 24th? And why weren't you truthful on those matters? Did you send Judge Barrington?
Do you really want us to discuss this with you?
Yeah. Did you advise Judge Barrington on July 24th?
We're not having this conversation.
Carol, because you know what, we have our...
This is litigation.
Let her speak, let her ask the question. You don't have to answer if you don't feel like answering.
Your actions, whatever they are, proper or improper, are going to be affecting all of the residents of this town. So when you do improper things, according to you,
We didn't do anything improper.
All right, look. All right, stop interrupting the resident. You've got to leave because you just can't sit there and keep your mouth shut. I'm sorry, you had a chance.
And you're a former council Republican, and you're also...
You should leave, really. It's not good for you to be here. It's not good for us for you to be here.
Let's call it what it is. You disagree.
Well, stop.
let her just talk. Now she's bringing up that I'm a Republican.
You agree to disagree.
I just don't understand why I can't...
You cannot put logic where there's no logic, okay? That's it. Just keep going.
You can't be crazy.
Just a couple of points, Mayor. Ms. Sabari is talking about the risk. And I happen to agree with that statement, but what Ms. Sabari is not saying, a part of the major risk that we're facing right now is not only what you did, but what you did not do. And what this council majority did not do was for 7 months, did not act properly. And I guess we're going to find out when we go to court,
Because we had a deal in place when you...
Carol,
And I just finished...
Carol.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
We were taking direction, we're the professionals that we worked with.
I just can't,
Relax.
Come on.
I know that you all know that I was the COA liaison until October 1st.
And what
I know
did you do,
you need to
Carol?
stop, Ellen.
You're attacking me.
Stop.
I'm defending myself.
Look, will you let her finish? Really. Right. Let her finish. Let her finish. Very well.
Carol, but you were also on the council, right? No, yeah, and you were the council president, right? So back, when Anne Marie was the borough attorney, right? Did she file for the immunity on time? Whatever happened with that?
No.
Whatever happened with that?
Answer that question with Mr. whatever his
So-
here from Normandy. Do you want me to really answer these questions out in public? Oh, you know what?
Now
Look at what you're saying out in public. We need to just be quiet already. We are destroying ourselves.
Wait, she's answering
You
the
are
question.
destroying this community
answering the
by
question.
saying, by making those comments. You need to keep it under wrap. We're in litigation.
No kidding.
Okay, so stop, just stop already. Stop talking about
Letter
it.
to the town.
Yes, letting them know that we were going to recommend litigation.
Playing games
Yes.
with the judge is what you're doing. right?
No, you're wrong. We are professionals. I don't need you to tell us what's right.
I don't know why, but you really get them excited up here. Ms. McMorro, it's...
You know why?
It must be the,
Here, and she's pointing fingers
it
at
must be
everyone
the,
else.
the truth hurts,
When she herself had an opportunity to fix something and she didn't do it.
She did.
So why do you come now and point fingers at everyone?
I think she actually did fix it.
I actually did fix it.
She did a lot.
Why don't you ask this mayor what he has done in the past?
Well, actually, I could answer that.
About COA.
Ms. McMorro did a lot of work last year with Russ and myself. They took the laboring war on COA. They presented us with a great plan. You actually adopted it. And then you did a flip-flop.
Right.
Right.
Because
On
if it was a
January-
good plan, why didn't you sign off on it? Why didn't you sign off on it when it was a done deal in December? Because it didn't exist.
No, it did exist.
No.
It was the end of the year, and we were told to do it in January.
Right.
Okay, can we let her finish so we can go home tonight?
So now,
We did. We
We have a lot of work
adopted
to
it.
do here.
All right, go ahead and finish.
they have a majority leading on it.
Councilwoman O, I don't appreciate you, well...
Yeah, I don't appreciate you coming up here and calling everyone else a liar.
I didn't call everyone
Why are you
liar.
so comfortable yelling at residents? You shouldn't do that.
Well, she's not only a regular resident, she was the past, president of
She is a resident now. You have to be
Well, now she
respectful.
is.
Charge of COA.
That's all she's a
You
resident.
were the municipal chair of the Republican Party, you were the council president, you were the councilwoman. So, I mean, why are you coming up here and pointing fingers at all the them?
Because she,
And what about the mayor? Why don't you say some things about the mayor not doing anything about COA?
Can you stop the majority?
make her happy, yell at me about something. Go ahead, make-
What do you want me to say?
He hasn't done anything in the last 4 years about COA.
But that's your opinion, Gloria. You haven't done anything
No,
either,
it's
so...
not. Hey, you've been here 6 years, you've done nothing anywhere. But go ahead.
Can I just finish? Stop attacking me.
Let's just let her finish.
Will somebody respect the audience and please get on with this business at hand?
Yes, I was the council liaison, and I did a very good job. Okay, I put in 60 hours a week at a minimum, and that plan was a great plan. But what happened here is, and what my fear is, I will find out when we go to trial, because you say we're going to trial, we're gonna find out if you dropped the ball on October 1st when you were supposed to take that ball with what I gave you and carried it and worked on it. It's all going to come out, Gloria, what you did and what you didn't do. It's going to come out. The truth will come out, okay? So we will wait to find out. I can sleep at night and know what I did, and I did my job, okay? And you know I did my job, too. Last thing, Mayor, is that this resolution here, which, I happen to agree, I think we should have been given out to the residents. I think it's another game to give it out for something as...
You could open my email to the clerk if you want.
Okay.
It's out there.
My confusion is, Mr. Marinello, who wrote this?
The affordable housing attorney.
Okay. I'm just asking the question, don't...
I'm just answering
Okay.
the question.
Did you review this for accuracy? I'm not being
I can't
disrespectful,
speak,
I'm just
okay,
asking.
I can't speak to the accuracy of it, because I'm not the affordable housing attorney, I'm not in charge of that case,
As
so...
someone who was on this committee, okay, for a year, and I'm not gonna start pointing things out and make it easy for other people, there's a lot of issues with what's written in here. Okay? A lot of issues with what's written in here. I don't know why you're passing this. I can't understand, Mr. Serenian, I will say it on the record, never advised us that we needed to ever pass this. So I can't understand why all of a sudden you need to pass something like this with some of the errors that I'm seeing in here, and then possibly putting yourself into another situation when it's not a requirement. If it's a
Well,
requirement
if
and
there's-
it's in your order, I understand that.
If there's some inaccuracies in there or things that you think are wrong with it, I'm happy to have you bring those to my attention. And if they need to have a corrective resolution at the next meeting, they'll do it.
Mrs. McMorro, would you
Do a
be...
corrective resolution if there's things that are
Mrs.
wrong.
McMorro,
We'll
would...
just be
Hold on.
happy to communicate.
Mrs. McMorro, would you be willing to sit down with him right now and go over it in the room?
I'm not willing to. It's too late.
You're an attorney.
Oh, okay, all right.
Three of our attorneys drafted that.
So Mrs. McMorro was willing to clarify the errors, and you're not willing to sit
No,
there.
that's not true, Mr. Mayor.
You just said you're not willing.
No, I am not going to take Mrs. McMorro's word that they're wrong. You write me an email, I'm happy to review it. Well,
Meet with you if you need me to meet with you.
no, I want...
What I'm bringing to your attention now, Mr. Marinello, is that if the judge didn't order you to do this, what is the benefit, and I'm just asking, of you doing it?
That is a great question, and if you were my client, I could discuss that with you, but you're not, so I can't.
Thank you.
No, you're not. This is a litigation. I can't discuss litigation with people who I do not have attorney-client privilege with. I know that you understand that because you were on the council, and I'm sure you respected attorney-client privilege at that time.
I do, I just have great concerns for the items that...
That's why I'm asking you to put it to my attention. I will look into it. If they're wrong, we can fix them in August. Would you correct, no, there's no damage to the town. You could do a corrective resolution.
You're committing, look, okay, you know what, Mayor, I'm gonna read this right here.
Right.
You're committing this panel. Consequently, this plan is based upon the borough's best judgment as to what its RDP is. If the RDP changes as a result of litigation, the borough reserves all rights to revisit how it satisfies the RDP and assigns, because the magnitude of the RDP determines the borough's judgment as to what is the best plan for the community. All right, you know what?
Do you understand what that means? What does that mean?
I really think we should just stop discussing this.
No,
That means...
This is in litigation.
It means a lot more than that.
Okay.
Carefully.
Three attorneys drafted that.
Yes.
Three,
What does that mean?
I'm not an attorney.
who are in our affordable housing professionals. That includes Troutner, Jeff Serenian,
Jeff Serenian,
Where is she
they're
referring?
on November,
Tom Troutner.
because you told them to change.
Okay, so I think you're right.
I did not
The
tell...
the resolution is not something we should
I
be
did not tell
adopting
anybody
tonight.
to change.
You're not an attorney.
All you should be doing is terminating the MOU and litigating, that's it, nothing else.
That's your opinion. Okay.
Bigger problem.
That's what they want, though.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be your opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, well...
That would be your opinion.
Savari,
Don't worry, I sleep well at night. I've worked very hard on this.
Thank you.
your political party.
No, that would not be correct.
Okay, anybody else?
Good evening. My name is David Sacker, S-A-C-H-A-R. I'm a newcomer to this town. My family has lived at 12 Egan Place only since 1970. I haven't spoken up at a meeting here before because I'm naive. I'm only a professor of medicine. I'm not a professor of municipal government. But as a professor of medicine, as a doctor, when I face a problem with a patient, I don't waste a lot of time and energy on trying to determine whose fault it is if the patient got sick. And I don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out who's to blame for the patient's illness. We are facing an illness. We're facing a problem. We're facing a prospect of court-ordered affordable housing. Why we're facing it, how we got into it, isn't the issue for this evening. What is the issue for this evening is how to address the problem of the prospect of an unfavorable decision about affordable housing, unfavorable to the interests of our borough. Now, in medicine, when we try to make a decision about how to face a problem, we calculate what we call a risk-benefit ratio. And we determine the risk-benefit ratio on the basis of evidence, on the basis of statistics, on the basis of experience, on the basis of calculating likelihoods or probabilities. Now, looking at the history of 330 prior cases in this state, it appears, and I think everybody agrees, as Councilwoman Zavari said, that we face a certain risk. We all have an emotional desire to fight. We want to fight this situation. Fighting in this case means litigating against affordable housing. The question we have to ask is, what is the likelihood that litigating against affordable housing will stop affordable housing? It's not like King Canute being able to sit at the shore and say, order the tide not to come in. The tide may come in. And if it comes in, and if we lose, we might be much worse off than if we had settled. Now, I don't know what the answer is. As I said, I'm not an expert in this. I don't know if we should litigate or if we should settle. All I'm asking is a reasonable assessment, a public acknowledgement from each of you to weigh what are the risks and what are the benefits. What is the likelihood that we will prevail and be better off versus the likelihood that we will lose and end up much worse than if we had a settlement. So, on July 10th, I sat here for 2 hours, and today I'm sitting here for 3 hours listening to a spinning contest as to whose fault is what, and who did what, and who should have done what, and that's not what we ought to be talking about. I want to hear from you, either individually or in the aggregate, how do you weigh the likelihood of success of litigation versus the risks of losing? And then I think we can make an informed decision.
So, Doctor, thank you for your comments. And please stay, it's fine. We all recognize that we cannot stop affordable housing. That's not what we're litigating over. That's a given. That's like the diseased or ill patient. We have that patient. We are the patient. But what we are fighting for is the borough's ability to exert home rule and be able to satisfy our obligation as we are required to, not by what a developer tells us we are required to. And that's what the litigation is over. How much do we need to build, and where do we build it?
That also has its own risk, just so that we are all aware of that.
I understand that we have to settle things according to home rule and our decision and the decision of the court. That's, if we litigate, we will end up, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but it's not entirely up to us. It's either up to us to settle with the private party or to accept the judgment of the court. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mary O'Shea, 12 Irving Avenue. I just wanted to clarify a few things. I am on the planning board. I did vote no on the corporate development that Normandy presented. And at the same time, it must be stated that Normandy's ownership in the property is under a condominium title. So therefore, the Unilever Research and Development is part of a condominium association, and Normandy is the condominium association for the other part of the building. When they came into the planning board, they focused on the subdivision, and they focused on removing the deed restriction across the front of the property. And in there, like Mr. Perino stated, that subdivision line is the same subdivision line that they have in their plans now, and the same line that goes across the front of the property, which would be the apartments in the front, is the part that was with a deed restriction, okay? So they wanted that removed, and that was put on by previous planning boards many years ago to keep the corporate view shed of that area away from the street, okay? Now, under a condominium association, the parties have common areas, and the common areas are the parking lots. So under the condominium association title, the people that are in the research and development area that need to park 270 cars, they could park anywhere on the property because it was a common area. But once you subdivided, they didn't have parking for the research and development. And they wanted to take the parking for the research and development and put it on the other property, the office property. Englewood Cliffs zoning ordinance have upheld for years and years and years, it's not something new, that you have to provide parking on your own property for development. And I think that was a way in the past that was used to control the size of development. You couldn't build an enormous building if you couldn't provide parking. All right? So the planning board had grounds not to grant that. And it was stated at the meeting, why don't you keep it as the condominium association? Because then you don't have to worry about the parking and the subdivision. But they were dead set on having that subdivision. All right? And the gentleman, the bald guy, from Normandy, made a statement that, we're going to market the building to a Class A Fortune 500 companies, and they're going to want individual ownership. Now, he didn't know that, because he didn't have a prospect or a client for the property. It wasn't that he had somebody that NBC or the Rockefeller Foundation or somebody was going to move into that building, and they said, we'll only take it if we can own our own piece of the property. It was an hypothesis on his part to say, we need this for our future, to market this property to the type of client we want. And that was the way they stood on it, and they held fast on that point. They needed the subdivision. So we said, why don't you find out first, get the client first and see if that's what the client wants, that you're going to do that. No, we need to do this now, okay? So I firmly believe, and I verbalized this to Mrs. Geiger when she called me about voting no on it right afterwards. What? You did call me, I have it on tape, I taped the voice. I put it on your cell phone, Karen. Hey, play it. I have to find it.
Yeah.
You go play it. I do have it here, play it. I will. Want me to put it up on the computer, I'll put it on Facebook, or do it later. Okay, go ahead. All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. But, and Pat, you had Pat Rosen for me, so I spoke to her also. So, you know, I do believe that I did the right thing, all right? I believe I did the right thing. And I do believe in my heart of hearts that Normandy plan was for residential housing on that property from the get-go. They wanted that subdivision to do that, okay? And nothing, if they kept it under the condominium association the way it is now, they could have put the parking here, there, and not had a subdivision, and kept it as one parcel, okay? But they didn't. Secondly, when the planning board had, Mr. Mistretta and Mr. Serenian, come in January 7th, 9th, whatever, and presented the plan. Debbie, you were there. Karen was there. They presented the plan that had been developed, which the council purchased the Dower building and the parking lot to accommodate. Right? That was with the COLA money that had been paid in fees for development. So the town purchased a commercial property and a parking lot to accommodate the plans that were being developed by Mistretta and Serenian. And Serenian said that he felt it was a good plan, all right, that it was viable, that 55 units, we would get a bonus, it would be up to 77. It would be in that sweet spot with the judge, okay, and we could amend the plan, like the mayor said, going forward, if it was shortfall, if it wasn't adequate enough. He said that tonight. And that was January. And then it came on to the council meeting, and it was tabled to the following meeting, I think the 24th or something. The council that is comprised right now voted for it. You voted for it, okay? And if that was the case, you voted for it, and Serenian felt that we would prevail in court. So I don't know how or why he changed to say now that it's the risk and risk and risk. Maybe he's been influenced by the new council or the new committee. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But he did feel that that was a viable plan that would go through the courts and would satisfy our obligation for now, not the future RP, whatever, but for now, okay? Now, if the council voted for that plan on January, the next step should have been a request for proposals from developers. And Serenian and Mistretta both had said they've been already contacted by different developers that do affordable housing construction. And they're all chomping at the bit to try to bid on this property, on this development. So that should have been happening in the past 6 or 7 months. We shouldn't have gone completely off track and signed a memorandum of understanding to let Normandy think, or maybe rightfully believe, that you were going to allow residential housing on 800 Silver. Okay, because there should have been no memorandum of understanding, because you all should have been firm to say we do not want residential housing in our commercial zone. This is our commercial zone, we do not want to change it. And now, as far as with this resolution that you have tonight, the gentleman over here that said about number one, I agree. In that number one, if you're going to talk about rezoning, you should specify what property you want to rezone. The Dower Building, the Lions Club, the tennis court, and the parking lot, that you want to rezone those properties for commercial, for residential. You shouldn't leave it open-ended that you're going to make zoning changes wherever necessary, wherever.
It's not open-ended.
I think it is, actually.
It appears to be.
It's not.
I mean, I saw it sound like him, I was late, but I went through it. To me, that's very open-ended. And knowing what you're dealing with, I would think that you would want to have a very tight resolution that would not leave any loopholes for Normandy to swirl through, okay? So that's just my opinion, okay? And, you take it from right now.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to be heard?
Make a motion to close, Mayor.
Second.
Seeing and hearing no one, can I have a motion to close?
I did already.
Had a motion.
I didn't hear you, sorry.
I made a motion to close.
All right, so Councilwoman O made a motion to close. Councilman Aversa seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your public comments this evening. We're going to continue with some additional business that we need to take care of. The first one up is Resolution 19151, resolution to amend the 2019 municipal budget. Now, on this issue, I had asked the borough administrator, what is the aggregate net change in tax, and what is the average change per household, per house change? And I haven't heard back. Do you have an answer?
We asked Steve Wilcox to join us tonight so he could come up and speak on it.
Sure. Want to just come on up? Thanks for being here. Chris, you want to come up also? I thought you guys just came for the affordable housing discussion.
But again, we're not also.
Chris, you can have that and you can bring it over, so you can have one.
I don't think it's wrapped.
You can share the mic.
Sure.
So the question was, two questions. What is the aggregate change in tax, on municipal tax with the amendment, and what is how does that trickle down to the household tax?
The increase in the tax levy is $585,000. And that's adding $200,000 to legal fees, regular legal fees, and adding $385,000 to the COA legal fee line item. And that 585, which, by the way, gets us right up to the appropriation cap in this year's budget. So that's the max we could raise the appropriations in the budget. And that translates into, on the average residential assessment of $1,310,000, tax increase of $236.
Did anyone on council have any other questions?
No, but I would
And
like
thank
to
you for
make...
answering that.
I would like to make a comment. This came about because we've had 13 new lawsuits since January. 5 filed by Carol McMorrow, 1 by Mike McMorrow, 3 by Lauren Eastwood, 1 by Mary O'Shea, and 3 by our mayor. And, no, it's not politics.
Well, my lawsuits are,
Fiscally responsible.
just because you're being harried here, so my lawsuits are to get information that I'm deprived of by borough council.
You're suing the taxpayers.
Yeah, I'm trying to get information that I am entitled to under New Jersey state statute.
No.
So that's it. And by the way, the $585,000 is just roughly about the money that you paid to the former disgraced police chief who left. The money was taken from him and you gave it back to him. So it's just about the same amount of money.
So, just keep in mind, when you sue the taxpayers, because they're paying for it.
Well, Well, they should sue you for not giving me the information that I'm entitled
I
to.
said before, and I'll say it again.
Like, I didn't know about the MOU that we've been discussing tonight until it was signed, right? So...
That's not true, Mayor. You're very well aware of what's going on.
No, not really.
You like the taxpayers to believe that.
As mayor, I am entitled to participate. Marinello, Sabari, Parker, all students.
Information as well, so next time I think we should give out the index numbers to every of those lawsuits so that the public is aware.
You should do that. You should.
Right, and who prevails and who doesn't, because now we're keeping track, right, Marianne?
Right. No, we have to make sure we have the money.
Well, there's no argument that I'm entitled to that information.
Well,
Right?
Keep the audience from screaming out. Let's continue the meeting, please.
Don't call out from the audience, Mr. Luciano. This is not your living room. It's not your living room. It's not your living room. Stop yelling at Mr. Luciano. Stop.
okay.
I'm not hitting the button. I'm just going to ask you to leave. You're calling out. It's not acceptable. You want attention? Go get in the parking lot. You're not getting any more here.
Are there any other questions of Steve Wilcox and...
All right.
I'm professional.
Okay, can we take a vote?
Steve, can I ask one question? On the legal fees, how much of that increase is for what we talked about as future litigation, and how much of it is accounting for increased expenses to date this year?
Well, he's talking about the adjusted
The adjusted
500.
COA legal fees, I think you have $385,000.
Chris can probably speak better to this. I think right now, or as of the last time we chatted about it, the $950 that was in the introduced budget, there's about $800 and some odd $1,000
Encumbered.
spoken for, encumbered, contracts, not available for anything else. So there's about $140 left in that line, and this $385 gives us about $525,000 for the rest of the year.
So it's for the future
Correct.
litigation that we may have. Okay. And is the other $200,000 in legal expenses, that doesn't include any of the litigation at all? That's...
Those are other types of litigation other than COA.
Can I make a motion to adopt resolution, I can't see, let me put my glasses on.
It's 19-151. Yeah.
I second it. She made a motion.
Councilperson Swope,
No.
Song,
Yes.
Savari,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Aversa,
Since we're going to litigate, I don't think we have much, I don't know why you would vote no on that, so I'm voting yes.
I know, I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, you need to...
Ms. Farah, can you please stop yelling out from your seat?
Councilman Wood, I just want to ask you a question. How do you go about litigation without incurring more expenses?
No, it's just, we haven't, this budget just came out, I haven't gotten any information in detail. I'm asking it now, but I don't
Well,
have...
Councilman Wu had a very good point, and it goes back to my point, which is, if you didn't throw away $600,000 in retirement money to somebody who didn't deserve it, you could have covered this $585,000 and had some left over. But that's not how you all operate, is
We
it?
didn't have any workshops on this, nothing,
What workshop?
on the increase.
Yeah, I know.
You didn't have one budget to the budget committee.
Yes.
You want me to talk to you first? Stop talking about my name or my husband's name.
Ms. Farah, maybe it's time for you to leave. Maybe it's time for you to leave also.
Motion to adopt resolution 19-152.
That was already...
150, oh, we still have to vote. Can we vote, take the vote?
We took a vote. We voted.
Okay, so,
19-152.
It's
Let's move on.
5-1, yeah, that passes.
Resolution authorizing temporary capital budget.
Can somebody just explain this?
No, let's
Just, can you guys, the temporary capital budget,
Sure,
just,
this is, because we haven't adopted the final budget, and there's...
the final capital budget.
Well, the final budget
All right.
includes the capital plan, and there's an ordinance on the agenda tonight for refunding bonds. This relates to the introduction of that ordinance. There needs to be a capital plan in place in order to introduce the ordinance.
Okay, can you just explain to the audience what refunding bond is?
It's an ordinance that we're asked, and we have to, the local finance board, there's a resolution also on the agenda authorizing that application. There's a big tax appeal that was settled by this governing body in June. The refund taxes going back, I believe it's 2008 to 2018, to the tune of a little under $3 million. This bond ordinance introduction allows the local finance board to hear the application in order to fund this refund.
I objected to that settlement, but it's for the council to decide. Yeah.
6-0 vote by the council.
When is the final budget public hearing?
The public hearing is slated for a regular meeting of August 14th.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor for 152, anybody second it?
Second.
August 14th, yeah.
Vote clerk?
I'm sorry, I was speaking to the mayor. Who seconded it?
I did.
Ellen.
Councilpersons Wu,
Yes.
Song,
Yes.
Savari,
Yes.
Park. Yes. Aversa.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 19153. This is application to local finance boards. Mr. Wilcox, could you explain that also?
The resolution is required by the Division of Community Affairs, Department of Community Affairs, in order for an application to be heard before the local finance board. There has to be an authorization by the governing body that that application be sent to the local finance board.
I appreciate you doing that.
So moved?
Second.
No.
Councilpersons Wu,
Yes.
Song,
Yes.
Savari,
Yes.
Park. Yes. Aversa.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So the next thing up is,
154.
authorized to advertise for position in the Department of Public Works, and that's for a driver?
Labor.
Labor.
So moved?
Second?
Councilpersons Wu,
Yes.
Song,
Yes.
Savari,
Yes.
Park. Yes. Aversa.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, I had vetoed ordinance number 1908 relating to, it was basically reducing the standards for becoming a police officer in Englewood Cliffs. And just let me ask the clerk, was my veto posted anywhere publicly?
Yes, it was posted at the home.
Is it on the website?
I don't look right.
Okay, so I know a lot of these things get lost in the translation, but I just want to tell you why I vetoed that. If you recall, we actually increased the requirements to become a police officer in Englewood Cliffs, because, as I mentioned in my veto, the new 1908 unreasonably and substantially reduces the requirements for becoming a police officer in Englewood Cliffs. When I became mayor in 2016, the Englewood Cliffs Police Department was the second highest paid police force in New Jersey, and that was without accounting for overtime. And I believe that is still the case due to the collective bargaining agreement that was in existence at the time. And I go on to say that the residents of this borough are required to fund the salaries and expenses of the police department and are therefore entitled to be kept safe by a police department with the stringent hiring requirements previously ordained by the 2018 council. I go on to say that the ordinance as written declares that the mayor and council introduced and ordained it. That's not true. I did not introduce it. 1908 has two section 4s in it, which, one, are incomprehensible when read together, and two, effectively cancel each other out, rendering the entirety of the ordinance 1908 without an effective date or any force or effect. And then finally, I go on to say the council agreed with me that we need to hire additional police officers to replace recently retired police officers and to hire school resource officers, but nothing has been done during the term of the 2019 council. Perhaps this council is waiting to hire police officers only after their hiring requirements are softened in their new ordinance 1908. This council has played politics with our safety and seems well on its way to playing nepotism again with the reduced hiring requirements. The existing stringent police hiring requirements should govern these new hirings, and this council should not delay any further hiring new police officers. And then additionally, the ordinance incorrectly reflects an adopted date of July 10th, when in fact it was July 11th. So I signed that, and for reasons you could probably understand, it wasn't posted to the website, but now it's...
Reasons for that?
Now it's on video, so there you have it. I think...
How many police officers did you hire?
As far as I know, and as far as I know, that there are still 2 Section 4s in this, so I'm not sure what you all plan on doing with that. I think you should reintroduce it if you want to do anything.
Point of order, Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm kind of a little tired of you speaking poorly about our police officers. I really am.
That's actually not what I did.
Tired of it?
No, that's not what I did, and I'm tired of you mischaracterizing what I said. I just said I want people who are well qualified.
Our police officers are well qualified. Some of them do not meet that requirement that you asked about.
Right.
There is no changes. There is nothing bad about that ordinance to be changed. If you would have taken the time to speak to the police officers and other police chiefs in our community and in this...
We followed the model hiring policies.
That there's something not quite perfect about your...
We followed the model hiring policies.
Let me finish.
No, but you're going after me, so I'm going to come back at you.
Because you have not hired one police officer in...
the whole time.
You haven't
What do you mean? The
hired
mayor
one
can stand
police
and he can't?
officer in the time that you've been...
Well, absolutely true. We did not hire a new police officer because we had a police chief who we could not trust with any new police recruits, so we thought we remove him first, and then we start hiring people, because the worst thing you could do to a young police officer is ruin his career with bad leadership, and that is exactly what we didn't want to do again.
You're worried about that, not the
Yes.
community.
No, I am worried about the community. That's why I want to hire school resource officers right now.
You've had it for 4 years.
No, absolutely. We were covered. And I had an officer in charge in October.
Political campaign.
No, I don't need to campaign on police. Believe me. I respect police. I am pro-law enforcement. But if we're going to pay top dollar, then we should get top quality. Okay?
I make a motion to pass...
And wait, I had a question though, Mr. Versa. Did you fix Section 4? Did you fix Section 4? So there's 2 Section 4s in your ordinance.
Okay, so we'll edit Section 4.
You can't just edit Section 4.
Sure, we can do a corrective right?
You don't have to correct it.
Well, it doesn't make sense, so I encourage the public to do what you have
Take a
to.
roll call.
No,
We
nothing's
haven't made
being
any
changed.
changes since it was passed.
So that's not true.
Right, so no corrections were made, and Borough Council didn't feel that they were necessary, and that's his opinion,
I'm sorry, who made the vote?
which you're all relying on.
I made the motion, Ellen seconded it.
Councilperson Wu?
No.
Song?
Yes.
Jimmy, speak.
Savari?
Yes.
Park? Yes. Aversa?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, the next one up is, there was a new ordinance that was passed by council for 1909, this is regarding signage. I believe that the council is unreasonably restricting the freedom of speech under the New Jersey Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. Ms. Fair, you get to speak, so do other people, okay? So right now it's my turn. What you could have done is you could have put some reasonable restrictions in there to cover the time period that you're targeting. So you didn't do that. I think it's an unreasonable restraint of free speech.
Just to make a motion.
And again, my veto was not posted on the website.
Get them to make a motion to pass this resolution.
just for clarification, there's no statute that says this veto has to be posted on the website. Now, if you would like me to post your future vetoes on the website, I'll gladly do them because...
Well, I think in every other democratic governing body, you would get both sides of the equation, including Englewood Cliffs, as difficult as that might be to get done here.
Can I be recognized?
It's a public document, and people should see why I vetoed it. And
Mayor,
if you want to do your job, you should put it up there.
Mayor,
No, that's not a job.
can I be recognized, please?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to propose then for Resolution 19-156, make a motion to table it, all right, until we figure out.
Why are we tabling it?
Is
Right,
there a
'cause-
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Wants to do restrictions.
I'm not in favor.
Times.
Let's do a roll call.
So it was Councilwoman, and the second was... Councilperson Wu,
Yes, the tabling it.
We're revisiting all this.
Yes, the table.
Savari,
Nope.
Park,
Yes,
Aversa,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
all right, well, visiting all this.
So, let's ask Mr. Marinello to send me an email tomorrow explaining how he wants to do the corrections to 1908. Because again, if you look at it, there are two sections marked Section 4.
Typo error.
I don't think it was, I think they
Wrong numbers or...
I don't know what it is. So ordinance 2019, first reading, there's a public hearing on August 14, 2019. And by the way, I'm not your proofreader, so I don't want to have to be doing this.
One more resolution.
Oh, 19157? All right. So 19157 is the resolution that was introduced after closed session. I object to it on a number of grounds. First, I think the facts need to be corrected, as former Councilwoman McMorro pointed out. I haven't drilled down on those facts, but I know that she knows the facts very well. It's also not been asked for by a judge, so I'm not sure why you're preparing something.
You didn't say these things when we were in closed session.
Well, I'm aggregated all the time.
Changes
Right,
to,
so,
right,
the other thing is that
First time you're mentioning it now.
the resolution, what I did say in closed session, which wasn't brought to my attention, was...
Mr. Mayor, I and it was in closed session.
So I said this publicly too, Mr. Marinello, the MOU that was referenced in somebody's court filings needs to be terminated in this resolution as well. We also need to terminate the professionals, Serenian, you, Mr. Marinello, and Wunsch, since you all touched this, along with Ms. Stretta. Okay, I'm very direct, people, I'm sorry, this is... I have a fiduciary duty to you people, okay? If it was my business, then I could see some leeway, and we try to work things out. But here, it's very direct. These people have not served you well. They have excluded me from the process, and they have not shared information with me. My only option is to say, you should go.
That's not true.
Yeah,
We're
it
not
is true.
excluded from the process.
And then also, in number 1, the word "such" have been deleted. In number 3, there should have been a period after the word "property."
I make a motion, please, for resolution 19-159, 157, I can't read it. 157. One second.
Councilperson Wu,
For the one reason that I see no benefit in keeping the current MOU outstanding. I think we should just move on. If everyone is on board with litigating, then I don't know why we would keep that out there. So, I'm voting no.
Song,
Yes.
Savari,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Aversa,
So you're against litigating? I'm for litigating, so I'm fair.
Now, Mr. Aversa, you love those games, and when you do speak, it's only games. No, Councilman Wu said he objected because the MOU needs to be terminated.
Outstanding.
For legal reasons, we're not going to get into it publicly because we're going to let Beatty Padavano do their own
For
work.
that, we're not going to get into it.
I made my vote already.
All right, you didn't vote, you just jibber-jabbered.
I know, I cleared the vote.
Aversa, oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, actually, we have one more thing to do. I started my day 24 hours ago in Geneva, so it's doing okay. Ordinance 2019, first reading, public hearing, August 14, 2019. I did. 19-10, refunding bond ordinance providing for the payment of the amounts owing to others for taxes levied in and by the Borough of Englewood Cliffs in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $3 million, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $3 million of bonds or notes of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs, financing the cost thereof. So I I object to settling those and funding these. It's a waste of money.
We have a solution, Mayor?
I do. Don't settle property tax appeal claims that you shouldn't be settling.
Need a motion?
That's great logic.
No, the court has already ordered
It's
it.
one that requires effort, not just rolling over. And you all rolled over.
Yeah.
It's only $3 million, folks, so it's nothing to them, but...
What about rollover? Please don't make me go
The
there.
public hearing to this ordinance is, Wednesday.
Don't make me bring your lawsuit.
I need a motion.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
1 second, point of order. Mr. Wilcox, I would like you to explain to this council what happens if we don't do this.
Well, considering the council already passed a resolution agreeing to the settlement, and in the resolution...
It was 6-0.
6-0.
It was 6-0, including Councilman Wu.
In the resolution, it states that you have 120 days to refund this money interest-free. If it's not paid within 120 days, then the appellants have the right to collect interest on this money going back to 2008.
And what was the interest alone, just so that we're...
I haven't done the calculation, but it's not,
Hundreds of thousands, right?
it's gonna be a lot of money.
And
So,
settlement.
you agreed to settle it, this is the way to fund it. It couldn't be raised in the budget, there's not enough there's no cap room, there's no ability to raise taxes, and why would you raise taxes in 1 year when the state will allow you to pay it off over multiple years?
I understand all that, but it's a terrible settlement.
I'm not a lawyer, thank God.
The only one.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not blaming you. I know you're doing your job, but yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Councilpersons Wu?
Yes.
Song?
Yes.
Savari?
Yes.
Park?
Yes.
Aversa?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Can I have the 157?
So that public hearing will be held on August 14th as well on that ordinance.
Correct.
There'll be-
The local finance board hearing is August 14th during the day. With their approval, we'll be able to move forward with the hearing and adoption of the ordinance.
Okay, so there'll be a public hearing and vote for adoption on the 14th.
Correct.
Motion to adjourn.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for sitting through that.